The statue stands before you in silence. It reaches to the heavens, as if praying for release from its chains.
Here lies Patrick, prophet. He perished in this place, predicting the downfall of Brachus Rex. That's nowhere to die. Brachus was quite the tyrant.
Stay lit, damn it!
The statue is as still as...
What's this? I found something.
Careful now. That's a trap. Careful. I spotted a trap.
Yes. Careful. I've spotted a trap.
It's like you read my mind. Blessings on your kin and your kin's kin.
Feel it in the very tip of my tail.
The spirit traces runes in the air. You recognize the gesture. It's the same one you perform when gifting others with your blessing. Your hand reaches through her. As you pull back, a shiver overtakes you and a cloud descends. You see through the woman's eyes. You feel the discomfort of a source collar as you tug at it. Then, a clatter and a shriek. A winged voidwoken has grasped you in its talons. It takes you to the air as you flail impotently. The Voidwoken continues its journey for hours, perhaps days. You watch as familiar land and sea pass under you until the creature slows. The talons open, first air and wind, then a thud. Blackness. Light. You peer through the fog to see two dwarves, eyes as black as coals. They are dragging you through grass and stone. Perfect bait. The master will be pleased, drones one of them. The blessing fades. The spirit's hands are stilled. She looks to the sky, searching, then lowers her head and flashes the tiniest of smiles. The silent spirit sways gently to and fro, an ephemeral lily in a peaceful breeze. The dwarf rocks back and forth, staring at nothing.
That can't have been real. Those monsters bursting out from the ground, it was just a dream. It had to be a dream. It was a dream. It had to be.
Sorcerers. They brought in sorcerers? I can't remember. I can't remember why. I can't remember who. There was something in the ground. Back in the cave,
The dwarf bangs his palm against his head.
Damn it! I can't think. I can't remember.
No, this ain't right. I was on duty in the cave. I was on patrol and I was alive. This ain't right. None of this is right.
The woods have grown chilly now that the sun has set. Annie shuffles across the picnic blanket and huddles against you for warmth. You wrap one arm around her and with the other conjure a little ball of flame in your palm. Little more than a party trick, but her eyes fill with wonder nonetheless. "It's so pretty," she says, resting her head against your shoulder. "I don't care what they say, what you have is a gift." She inclines her face up towards yours, lips parted slightly. You lean into her, closing your eyes. You were a genius maze builder. Clear of mind, sharp of wit. You built an invisible staircase, useful to those who may find it. Warm red wine flows down your throat. The languor of a tavern evening soothes you. Suddenly, shrieks rend the night. The magisters have come. Warm red blood flows down your face. You are ever sodden, ever sandy. The smell of guts and sea waste cling to you like a ghost. You sought freedom, the life of a seaman, but you didn't find it. You are floating a few inches above the ground. Your friends are impressed. You bask in their hoots and hollers. Your favorite party trick. A sea voyage. Children and adults huddled together for warmth and comfort. You were a slave to the ancient empire not so long ago. Early memories are overshadowed by a terrifying death, a tempest of teeth, scales, and snarls. You never imagined it would end like this. You see him coming for you. You saw what he did to the others. You pray, you pray, you pray, you pray. Your mind is empty as a new moon. Something seems to have cleared it out, scrubbed the corners, bleached the halls. The nothingness is oddly comfortable. You hardly recognize him, but there he is, Alexander. You're shocked to see a sorcerer's collar around his neck. He seems so different now compared to how he looked back in school. You are nothing. You are no one. You do not exist. Not really. A lifeless elven child is cradled in your arms. Your vision blurs with tears. You look away. To a raised valley below. Tendrils of death fog dissipate, revealing a victorious Divine Order army advancing. Humans, magisters, murderers. You eat Griff's hand, and you see him putting animals, dead for days in the blistering sun, whole into his cooking pot. Probably best to pass on the stew. A deluge of happiness. You played the flute. You wrote poetry. The music ended in fraught joy. You stride past the chained sorcerers and climb onto the caravan without complaint. As you settle onto the bench, you offer Ralik's blessings to the Magister Guard. He offers only a bleary-eyed stare of disinterest in return before shoving the chained sorcerers aboard. As you watch them cower, you cannot help but feel annoyance. After all, don't they know they're going to be saved? You remember a cold childhood in a no-hope fishing town, bullied mercilessly by a dwarf named Lohar. With no other prospects, you sign up as a magister, eager for the power denied you all your life. You were a tough, dwarven smith of great experience and talent. You wanted to make a name for yourself, but you ran out of time. Collared by magisters in the far north, you were force-marched to this foreign land. A moment of hope as a grinning dwarf removes your source collar. Seconds later, void-woken death. Work, work, work. That's all there was in Driftwood for a dwarf like you. Until you got involved in the anti-magister resistance. Then, the work was still there, but also purpose. Purpose worth dying for. You are an abomination. A crucified figure blazing with sauce. You hear screams, and then the scent of charred flesh. Your grip tightens around the blade's hilt. You never felt such rage. These freaks, they are tearing the world apart. They must not live. Rivellon must survive. A boy at swim. Your name is Joe. You're 9. You're brave. You're off to see your mum. A shadow moves below you. A jagged vice closes on your thigh and pulls you down. Water fills your lungs. Blood billows. From the dark, you stare up at the thin slivers of light visible between the floorboards. Shadows ripple across the slivers, accompanied by heavy footsteps, Magister footsteps. Wood creaks above your head. One of them has paused. Your breath catches in your throat as you wait for him to move along. But the hatch is suddenly yanked open. Light floods you, blinding and accusatory. You hear only one gruffly barked word before the hands seize you. Gotcha! Eloisa was the prettiest girl, not to others, but to you. Her luminous eyes shone brighter than the moon. The day you collared her for Fort Joy, you wept every tear you had. You never cried again. You're stumbling away from the shoreline, a deep wound in your side. Behind you, the remains of your ship slip beneath the water. You press on, you and the others. A clearing further inland, a camp, a Magister camp. They weren't supposed to be here, yet here they are, twice as many in number as you and my friends. You reach for your sword. But the sky is already thick with Magister arrows. As the dead man's flesh slides down your throat, you feel his consciousness enter yours. His memories are yours to experience. You are Finn. Your heart is heavy. You know too much. It's all too much. You met him. A bright light blinds you, then fades. You feel a tremendous power in your hands, but they are shaking so hard you can barely use them. Suddenly you're on this very ship, crouched in a corner, hugging your knees. A figure approaches, an older woman. Her eyes are kind. She comes closer. She says she wants to talk. She reaches a hand toward you. You grasp it. The memories end. You are no longer Finn. You return to yourself with a jolt. You are awash with muddled thoughts, confusion, anger, sadness, loathing, a shocking absence of joy. A single name throbs across your brain. Verdas, Verdas, Verdas! He must escape. He cannot die here. He cannot! Your many years twinkle behind you like distant stars, tiny but beautiful. You smell wheat ale. You hear a chorus in a tavern. You feel joy. You cover your face with your hands. You've just heard the news. The elven homelands have been destroyed by death fog. It was your order who did it. How can this be? You are nothing. You are no one. You do not exist. Not really.
but it doesn't look good.
Glory is mine!
The gift of the fallen.
shut this thing up.
Done here. If you want me, I'll be in Driftwood, toasting my fallen brothers and sisters.
This body is fresh. Were they a sorcerer?
The spirit of the dwarven battle mage gazes upon the mutilated body that once housed her. As you approach, she turns confused eyes on you. She stares uncomprehendingly at your outstretched hand, slowly raising a bewildered gaze to meet your eyes. She stares, and you feel yourself drawn into the mesmerizing source pools of her eyes. With a jolt, her life flashes before your eyes. You become her in her prime, battling a felled magister in a deserted clearing. Electricity crackles from your fingers as you advance upon the magister. The magister is part of something dark, something cruel, something that goes against the very fabric of your being. All bets are off. Merciless, you attack her with spell and blade. As her warm blood spurts to cover your face, you are sated. A satiety you would never speak of, a satiety that momentarily fills the emptiness within you. Wait, who are you? You can't remember. You are thrust out of the spirit's memories and back into your own sovereign mind. You see the spirit of the dwarven battle mage before you, eyes downcast now. The spirit casts her eyes. The spirit tugs and tugs at the source collar around his neck, though it budges not an inch.
We couldn't. I couldn't. Is it really our fault? The Void Woken.
He gives you a look full of hope, then remembers the collar round his neck and slumps forward, letting his hands hang heavy by his sides. You feel a tidal wave of panic drown you. You try to crawl away, but claws pin you down. You look up to see a fanged maw lunge at you. You shift uncomfortably as the wagon traverses a patch of bumpy ground. The Magisters haven't removed your shackles, even though there's nowhere to run. You sigh and gaze outward. The landscape rolls past, empty and still. But then, you see something flying close to the horizon. Several things, in fact. You peer closer. What are those? Birds? Your eyes widen as they draw nearer. Those aren't birds. You turn around to shout a warning, but it's too late.
Looks like this is Loha's place. What's left of it? Could Mortis have survived this?
A dwarven spirit cowers on the ground, trapped in the fear of her final moments.
No, please! Help! Someone! Help!
With growing horror, she turns her focus on something unseen, looming high above her.
Mortis takes all.
The trembling of the dwarven spirit tells you the halberd in his hands may not be enough to withstand his unseen enemy. He glances behind him, searching for an escape. He drops the halberd and bolts behind some nearby rocks.
Divine, save me! I don't want to die, please! I don't want to die! I don't want to die!
The spirit screams and screams as something unseen tears into him.
There's a Void Woken on the bridge ahead. But where's it going?
A frantic dwarf knocks an arrow to a phantom bow. He lets it fly at some towering, invisible horror, visible only in his mind's eye. He reaches for another arrow.
Keep firing, damn you! He has to have a weak spot. He has to!
The ghostly dwarf ignores you, but the word Mordus forms soundlessly upon his lips. He drops his bow and yanks his sword from its sheath.
Come on, you filth! Let's see what your insides look like!
There's nothing there.
Gods, what happened?
The dwarf rocks on her haunches, gnawing at her own bloody knuckles. Her wet, fearful eyes flick to you. She lowers her fist just enough to hiss a warning.
Away! Away! Too noisy! It'll come back! It'll take me too!
She shrinks into the fetal position.
It'll come back! It'll come back! It'll come back! It'll come back! And we'll all be eaten alive! Get away from me! You're already dead! You're eaten alive! Eaten alive! Get away from me!
She clamps her hands over her ears and shuts her eyes. She rocks back and forth, deaf to your words. Her gaze falls on you, a glimmer of awareness. She raises her hand as a greeting, or as a warning. The spirit takes a deep breath and bellows silently. A distant cry echoes along the cavern.
Run!
An ancient memory overwhelms you. You are no longer you, but you still sense source saturating the air, more than you have ever felt before. You watch a figure stride through a cavern of amethyst and rose quartz. A man. No light touches this place, yet the stones and minerals illuminate his way. The man approaches a pearl sphere atop a pedestal. He lays his hands upon it, and source rushes through his fingers. And you are thrust back into reality. The memory fades, but you still sense the source the man has commanded, as if you'd possessed it for yourself. You keep your eyes shut tight, muttering rapid prayers to the Seven. All around you is a cacophony of wails, whimpers, and cries for help. You try to shut them out and pray with even more desperate fervor. A loud, inhuman roar suddenly cuts through the cacophony. You cover your ears with your hands and pray on. You turn away from the sunset, only to see that Stanley has dropped to one knee. He holds out a ring to you with a sheepish grin. Your hands fly up to cover your mouth, but too late to prevent a happy gasp of surprise from escaping. You didn't think he had it in him. You lose yourself in an ancient vision. As the man you saw before touches the pearl orb, you begin to feel yourself be. Various shades of grey swirl across the globe's surface, then part. You are free, joined by 7 others, summoned by sacrificial source. The 8 of you rush forth as shadows, past the globe, past the man whose body now lies limp on the floor, past the jeweled walls. The vision ends just as you emerge from the cavern. This memory, it feels ancient, a lost place in a lost time. You fall into another memory. You emerge from the crystalline caves, past the orange rubble jutting from the ground, and rise above a shimmering lake. Surrounding the lake is a throng of figures, your worshippers, our worshippers. They will deliver your rightful power to you. You will be as gods. The mob drops to its knees as one. The shimmering lake, once placid, begins to boil and bubble, draining source from every supplicant. The past fades into the present. You see through your own eyes once again. You sought escape, but something stalked you. You fled, it followed. You came across a pile of bones. In that moment, you knew that this would be your fate. You tried to run. Your source collar was heavy around your neck. You slipped on the slick stone, and then they were on you, dozens of mouths feasting on your still living flesh. You tried to make a break for it, from Fort Joy to the beach. You didn't make it. You died to the sound of your own echoing screams as the Voidwoken gnawed your bones.
What are you doing? They're close. I can feel them. Run. For the love of the Seven, run. There's no time. Run, you idiot. Run!
Sorcerer. Still wearing the collar, too.
Is this where the flying Voidwoken took those poor souls from the beach?
You're not trying to escape, are you?
Get your damn dirty claws off me!
Even the most noble among us must occasionally dirty their claws. Allowing oneself to be overtaken by a Voidwoken demonstrates a remarkable weakness of character. Get your damn dirty claws! Allowing oneself to be overtaken by a Voidwoken demonstrates... Where am I?
They fed me to their young. They chewed on my flesh as I screamed. They ate my flesh, and they want more. They want my source. I've seen them sucking up ghosts, swallowing them whole. They cannot be stopped. They cannot be destroyed. They are too many. You cannot fight them. They'll drag you down, and there are too many of them. Mordus? I heard that name on the lips of the dwarves. They screamed it as they killed each other.
what's the use?
The spirit stares at you, through you. When she opens her mouth to speak, her voice seems to drift to you from far away, as if half dreamed.
We keep the shipments here. That's what's meant for ships. It ends up in our carts, trundling away. Arks! The barrels are rolling all the way to Arks. And when they get there, the air will turn to screams. Dying, choking screams. It wafts on the wind. The black ring choked. Arks will choke. They will all choke. Mordus?
A dreamy smile spreads across her face.
You don't look for Mordus.
She comes back to herself for the first time and looks you in the eye.
Mordus looks for you.
Payload of the Peacemaker is here. I can feel its power.
Give for Hannah's advice right now. It's easy for Hannah to write. Where in the void am I supposed to find Tenebrian tools? Give for Hannah's advice right now.
Lucky find.
She's pretty sure the results
Lucky find.
yesterday, but I've changed nothing.
Nice.
Maybe? No. Maybe? No. Maybe? Oh, what's the use? Perhaps if I modify the essential substrate with the... Oh, never mind, that won't work. right. I still haven't sorted out the diagnostics. Jeez, I'm pretty sure the results were different yesterday, but I've changed nothing. What I wouldn't give for Hannig's advice right now. Pretty sure the results were different yesterday, but I've changed nothing. Maybe? Maybe? Oh, what's the use? I'm positive I read about this in last month's Avant-Garde Alchemist. Give for Hannig's advice right now. Jeez, I'm pretty sure the results were different yesterday, but I've changed nothing.
Good find.
Maybe? Maybe? No. Maybe? Oh, what's the use? I'm positive I read about this in last month's Avant-Garde Alchemist. If the vertices were aligned correctly, then my runes should... Oh, this is impossible! I'm positive I read about this in last month's Avant-Garde Alchemist.
The dwarven woman hums to herself as she works with total focus and concentration. Her ears twitch as you approach, but she does not turn to you.
Yes.
Under lock and key. I wonder where the others might be.
I'm positive I read about this in last month's Avant-Garde avant-garde alchemist.
Absorbed in her work, She turns to peer up at you, surprise and mistrust evident in her intelligent face.
And what business is it of yours, outsider? Please, you don't look like you have it in you, long-leggedy Freddy.
Absorbed in her work, the scientist sighs with exasperation.